We have to do a whole other session on that because there is that much positive news. I think increasingly we're seeing more vaccines move into what we call phase 3 trials, which are real world trials. That means when we give the vaccine to people in the community and we see if it protects them from the virus that's spreading in their communities. Those studies are just getting underway. What's positive, I think, is that of there's 4 or 5 of those going through now, none have failed so far. So pretty much all of the vaccines that have in the platform that have come through phase 1 and 2 trials have all made the grade in terms of safety and in their ability to generate immune response. So we're not seeing a lot, because very often in vaccine development you lose 1 or 2 along the way and you're hoping to keep a number of candidates right through to the end. So we're making good progress. We're not losing candidates right now. The real world trials are very different, and we really thank those people out there, particularly, again, it's mainly 18 to 55-year-olds who are volunteering for the studies, because they're hugely important studies, and people are stepping forward and saying, yes, I want to be part of this study, and that's a massive contribution to the whole world. People who are doing that for drug trials, they're doing that for vaccine studies. It's a huge gift to humanity to participate in research. You don't have to be an observer. You can participate in this, get involved, and we're working with many partners now to expand the trials around the world, and also to expand access to those vaccines. There's a lot of work going on, not only to ensure that we get an effective and safe vaccine, but also we can scale up its production, and there's a lot of work going on that, and we can allocate and give vaccines to everyone in the world who needs them. And that's a big fight, is to make sure that we are fair, because it's not just science is important, but fairness is just as important. And we need to be fair about this, because this is a global good. Vaccines for this pandemic are not for the wealthy, they're not for the poor, they're for everybody. So WHO has a very important job to make sure that we're fair. And we're working just as hard on that as we are on the vaccines. On the drug side as well, we've seen some positive results from some drugs. We're adding more drugs into our Solidarity trials. There are some interesting and hopeful signs with things like hyperimmune globulin, and potentially down the line with monoclonal antibodies, again based on material on blood that's taken from recovered patients. So again, patients in recovery are contributing and benefiting people who are coming behind them in the system. So I think we are seeing hopeful signs, but I think we have to be realistic on 2 things. One, we need to be realistic on time. Realistically, vaccines, no matter how fast we push, we have to make sure these vaccines are safe and that they're effective. And that takes its own time. And we're speeding that up as much as possible. But we're not in any way going to cut corners on safety. We have to be able to look ourselves in the eyes, and we have to be able to look at our communities and ensure them that we have taken every precaution to make sure these vaccines are safe and effective before we go giving them to general populations. In order to make that happen, we can shorten that time, but realistically it's going to be the first part of next year before we start seeing people getting vaccinated. That's the first sort of issue. Second issue is vaccines are never 100% effective. They generate immunity in most people. For some vaccines, it's only some people. For some vaccines, like measles, they're highly effective and 95% of people are protected. We don't know where we are with this. So we're going to have to wait and see how effective the vaccine is going to be and how long will the protection last. So the idea that we're going to have a vaccine in 2 or 3 months and then all of a sudden this virus is going to go away, I would love to be here saying that to you, but that's just not realistic. And it's really important that we're realistic in our expectations. We have to push and get the best vaccines we can, get the best treatments we can, but we also need to be realistic, and we need to do what we can now. And Maria said it, there's so much we can do now. And it'll be so much easier to get rid of this virus using vaccine if we've already suppressed it. Because it's easier to beat an opponent when you've already exhausted your opponent, and we need to exhaust this virus. We need to push the virus out of our communities, and then using vaccine will be much easier for us to be effective in the use of that vaccine. So we need to work as hard as we can now to continue the fight against the virus, work as hard as we can to develop the vaccines, and then bring the 2 together to finish this thing off, I hope.